Hello and welcome to today's livecast. I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I'm here to spend the next hour with you talking about games, Stonemaier Games, and a bunch of random topics. I have a long list of things to talk about today. As you may notice, and as a few people have mentioned, thanks Joshua for calling this out, this video is now live on both Facebook and YouTube. I figured out last week what was going on and figured it out. Back online now. I'm still trying to figure out one element of the added security that I'm trying to add since the hack, which is the external security key. I have one, just haven't figured out how to install it. It's a little bit more obtuse to me than I thought it would be. Yeah, so working through that, but otherwise, I think we're completely back to where we were before the hack. And really, in some ways, I think, well, I know in some ways. The YouTube channel, my email account are more secure than before. So that is, I guess, a small silver lining to come out of it. What's more important to me is that when someone is hacked, that other people maybe learn from that experience a little bit so that they don't have to go through that ordeal. So hopefully you all did something after the hack to boost your security a little bit so that you don't go through that as well. See, Pete is here, a local friend. He says, I'm listening while I do some design work this morning. That's exciting, Pete. I'm excited to see what you're working on right now, or I might have an idea of what you're working on. Curious to see how it goes. I'm working on a game today as well, and I did a play test of a game this weekend. Megan was very kind to play test a game with me, a game that we haven't announced, but is moving forward really, really well. I see my friend Miles is here as well. Got to play some disc golf with Miles this weekend. Garrett says, did I play any new games recently? I did, Garrett. Thank you for asking about that. And I'll throw that question out to any of you. Did any of you throw any new to you? Did you play any new to you games this weekend or recently? The new to me games that I played recently. So I played some old to me games and some new to me games. The new to me games were Night of the Ninja, which is a hidden role social deduction style game where your role changes quite a bit throughout the game, which I thought was a really interesting twist. And you win, even though you win each round as a team, there's only one winner to the overall game. I had a lot of fun with that. That was recommended to me by my co-host of a podcast, Mitchell, recommended that one to me. I also played Core of Discovery for the first time yesterday with my friend Henry, and we had a great time with it. It was a really neat take on exploration, and it was a neat reminder to me. So I've designed this game Vantage that Garrett you know about. Garrett's one of the developers for the game. And Vantage has its own take on exploration. Core of Discovery also has its own unique take on exploration, where you're kind of deducing on a map where things are, a top-down map, but done in a very different way than I think a lot of exploration is done. It's not like a tile-based game where you're revealing a tile. It's a grid deduction puzzle that you're embarking on. And we lost. We didn't figure it out, but we had a lot of fun for doing so, for playing Core of Discovery. I see some, let's see, Phil played Art Society, Ian played Bomb Busters. I still need to play that. Anthony says, will Vantage have a disc golf design? It will. In fact, I mentioned Miles Bensky a few minutes ago. Miles is the artist for the Vantage disc, which I will reveal a little closer to the launch for Vantage. The next update doesn't talk about the disc golf disc. The next update talks about the rulebook. And the next update is coming soon. In fact, next week, my plan is to post the next Vantage update, which is where we have the big rules reveal. By now, if you followed along, you probably know the rules to Vantage, but you can see the full rule book next Wednesday morning is the plan for revealing the final big Vantage update. After that, there'll be a few smaller updates leading up to the launch, or maybe just one update and then a launch update. I think that's probably the plan. And then starting next Friday, the 20th, that's when we'll start to see some reviews and playthroughs of the game from content creators. Jeff says, did you get your copy of Comic Hunters yet? Still happy to teach. I do have it, Jeff. Honestly, I've been waiting to play it at the full 4 players. It seems like there's a lot of scaling that you need to do at lower player count for Comic Hunters. And I have learned it doesn't seem like that hard of a game to play. I appreciate you offering to teach, though. But I'm curious to play it, but I want to play it at the full 4 if I have that opportunity, rather than scaling down to 2, where it just seems a little odd at 2, and then 3, you still have to remove some things. It's the type of game, it's one of those games, I don't know if you all have ever experienced this, but games where the scaling seems like it's maybe taking away elements of the game. But maybe, Jeff, you could disagree, or anyone who has played Comic Hunters might be able to disagree with that. But I do know during setup, it does require some things that you have to change for setup, for lower player counts. Ian also played Trailblazer, the Jamey Trail. Aaron played a bunch of new games over Memorial Day. A favorite new to me game was the Japanese game Harvest that was re-released a couple years ago. Is that different, Aaron, than the other game Harvest that came out last year from the folks that made Parks? Sounds different if it's a Japanese made game. Chrysler and Tiny Towns. Joshua mentioned Assyria, the 2nd edition. I was actually just listening to the Garfield Games podcast about Assyria this morning. Really interesting to hear them talk about their game design process. I'm sorry to hear Garrett's copy of Emberleaf arrived damaged, but hopefully the game itself inside the box is decently playable, at least. Sorry about that, Garrett. Aaron also got Emberleaf. I won't read all of them out loud, but I see a lot of different games being mentioned in the comments here. Monkey Butler Lab says, will you be purchasing the special edition of Agricola currently funded? I find myself wanting it because of my love of the game, but also know it never hits the table. It's a good question. I do love Agricola. It was one of the games. I don't know if you all, when you started to get into modern hobby games, but for me, when I started to get into them, there was a lot of we played the same game a lot. Catan was probably the first one. Well, Magic was technically the first, but I've been playing Magic for many, many years. And then Catan, modern Euro games, I guess. Played Catan a lot, and that was all we played for a while. And then Agricola was the next one, as far as I can remember. There might have been a few others sprinkled in there, but I believe Agricola was the next one, where we just played Agricola. We'd get together once a month almost to play Agricola. And so I played the game a lot. I love the game. I don't exactly know if I need to own it, though, which is maybe an odd thing to say about a game that I love and that I played a lot. But yeah, I have not backed it yet. But yeah, that's my current thinking about it. Let's see. Scott says you're normally not available for these because he's on Hawaii time, currently in Japan, traveling back from China. That's exciting, Scott. Hopefully you've had a good trip. What do you think is the best convention for bang for a designer's buck? Living in Hawaii makes con attendance difficult. There are, Scott, I think I know at Stonemaier Games, we donate a few games to play and win conventions in Hawaii. I can't remember the name of the convention, but I think there is a convention in Hawaii. You probably already know about it. For designer, that's a good question. And there might be, this is a question open to anyone who is maybe design games and maybe you're either pitching to publishers or you're just looking to get a lot of playtests for your games at a convention. I mean, I think that might actually, that distinction might matter a little bit. If you're just looking to play test a game a lot, then events like an Unpub, a Protospiel, or a Stonemaier Games Design Day might be the type of event you're looking for. But a lot of those events are one-day events. So if you're traveling all the way from Hawaii for a one-day event, I don't know if that's worth it. The other side of it is, I guess, pitching to publishers or just being a designer to learn about a lot of different games. There is that side of it. In fact, that's a third side of it. For pitching to publishers, probably Gen Con. And for the other side of the design, of playing a lot of games from other designers to learn from them, that's the reason that I attend Geekway to the West. I would highly recommend Geekway to the West here in St. Louis, or a convention like that. A convention focused on casual play over the course of 3 or 4 days, where you're just playing and learning a lot of games. I find that incredibly helpful as a designer. So bang for your buck, it might be a convention like Geekway, because those conventions typically aren't all that expensive. They are worth the trip. People travel for Geekway for a 3 to 4 day vacation, and they get to play a lot of games during that time. What else is going on? Tony says, we played Monty Python and the Defenders of the Realm, which is a fan-made full expansion for Defenders of the Realm based on Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He loved it. Do you have any fan-made expansions to games that you like? That's a fun question for everyone again, Tony. Great questions for everyone asked so far today. I love it. And I do have a question that I'll ask maybe 10, 15 minutes. Do you have any fan-made expansions to games that you like? I'm trying to think if I have even ever played a fan-made, other than for games that I publish. So non-Stonemaier Games, have I played a fan-made expansion that I like? Probably, but maybe very rarely. The only thing I can think of that comes to mind right off the top of my head, other than other than Stonemaier Games, is Time Stories had a module that originally I think was a fan-made expansion, but became an official expansion. I played it when it was in official form, and it was one of the new Time Story blue box models. I'm forgetting the name of it, honestly, but it was designed by the wonderful folks at Tantrum House, or two of the wonderful folks, Melissa and Kevin at Tantrum House. And I think they did a fantastic job with it. It was one of my favorite expansions for that game. And I think it was in the standalone form, but it was originally fan-made at least. Okay, I see some people mentioning, okay, Nick says Comic Hunters is perfectly good at 3. Jeff says definitely best at 4. Carol says, I found Comic Hunters rulebook a little rough to learn from on the spot. I have read through the rulebook and I watched a video about it. And I think I have a pretty good idea of how it works now that I've gone through it a few times. Okay, Aaron clarified that the game Harvest that he mentioned is from 4 games and not the also excellent Keymaster game. Alex says, I assume Vantage has a lot of text. It does. It has around 300,000 words of text. Vantage, for those of you who don't know, is the open world cooperative game that we are launching in about a month, launching and shipping. So we will have it available in our fulfillment centers in about a month. And it does have 300,000 words, but for any individual entry that you read, and you read an entry almost on every turn in Vantage, it's usually 1 or 2 sentences. So you're not reading long passages of text, just a short little snippet to tell you what you're doing. Alex says, do you have any information about localization, French in particular? Alex, let's pull up the website here and see what it says. So on our website under Vantage, if you go to that on the Stonemaier Games website, at the bottom of the page, it says localization partners. So far, Keep Exploring Games, which is Dutch, Surf and Meeple, which is Chinese, Forland, which is German, Maldito Spanish, and Albi Czech have announced their involvement in localizing Vantage. That doesn't mean that other partners aren't also localizing it, but those are the ones that have given us the public approval to say they are working on the localization. If you were ever looking for a specific language, I would recommend going to our typical partner for that language and saying, hey, I'm very interested in getting this game in X language, in this case, French, you mentioned. And Matago is typically our partner in France. Ian says, have you done a video on your top party games? I'd love to get your perspective. I'm pretty sure that I have, but let's see if I have a video about that. I'm going to look at my other screen here for a second. Party games. I don't know if I've called them party games, but we'll find out. Okay, my top 10 favorite games to play at parties. It's a little dated. It's 6 years old. But I have done a video more recently on, let's see if I can search for like large group. So I have a video about my top 10 small box games for big gatherings. That was a video that I did 2 years ago. That's small box games for big gatherings. That one does look like a lot of party style games as well. And then check out so far on that. I do have a video that I've already recorded about games that play higher than 6 players, not always necessarily party games, but games that do scale well to those higher player counts that I will be releasing sometime this summer. Jordan says, do you think the $3,000 Lord of the Rings, the Confrontation Ultimate Edition is too much? I don't know. The price of anything is relative to what people would actually pay for it. Would I pay $3,000 for a game? No. But if people are willing to pay it, then it is priced for what people will pay. It also depends from a publishing perspective based on the cost of the game. So how much does this game cost them to make? My question for you, Jordan, because I saw a photo of this the other day, and I saw it on a table. Is the table part of it? Are you buying the table and the game on the table, or is it just the game on the table? My answer actually might change a little bit based on whether or not the table is included in that $3,000. Awesome. Rick says that they played Wingspan for a second time. I was teaching at the full 5-player count. Thank you so much for teaching Wingspan, Rick. I really appreciate that. Pete also mentions here, Origins is a good convention for pitching games. Lots of publishers there with more free time than they have at something crazy like Gen Con. That is a great point, Pete. And I haven't been to Origins to speak to that exactly, but I have heard that as well, that while both Origins and Gen Con are primarily based on the expo, the exposition, like the selling games aspect of it, that because Origins is a little bit smaller, publishers do have more time there. Peter says, any guess as to when you think Wingspan will finally be complete, including all future expansions? I know we're talking years. Also, any news on a fan pack of birds? I have 2 pieces of news there, Peter. As for my estimate for when Wingspan will be complete, at least in terms of completion for all of the continents, so there are 3 remaining continents, I would say we're probably looking at around 5 years, so 2030. As for the fan packs of birds, we are working on them right now, so they will soon enter production. Peter says, I assume the fan packs will be compatible with all our packs and will fit in with the current percentages of types of cards. That is what we strove to do. Yeah, we're using the same printing methods, same graphic design methods. And I guess for context, for anyone who doesn't know what these are, we selected a few fan design sets of birds based on different themes, a few different themes, and we are officially making these cards. This comes with Elizabeth's knowledge and approval. They are peer reviewed. They are heavily play tested. So they are official, even though they aren't expansions. These are just kind of more like promo packs of fan design birds that we are releasing sometime this year. Depends on when production is ready. Hilda says, was it Time Stories Revolution Cavendish by any chance? We enjoyed that one a few weeks ago and really enjoyed it. Let's see, Hilda. I will pull that up on Board Game Geek and see if that is it. Cavendish. Time Stories Revolution. It is Time Stories Revolution. I know that. No, it wasn't Cavendish. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. It is, let's see if I can find it here. The Hadal Project. That's it. Yeah. It was the Hadal Project. Yeah, definitely that one. Yeah, such a cool expansion. Really cool. It does one of my favorite things about time traveling in it. Jerry is really excited about the Role Player Adventures Kickstarter. Role Player Adventures, one of my favorite, if not, definitely, I would say top 3 favorite campaign games I've ever played. Fantastic game for my style of play. I don't want to say that's for everybody, but for me, one of my top 3 favorite campaign games. That was Role Player Adventures, and they do have a new expansion on Kickstarter right now. Jeff says, I'm halfway through the 2nd season of Devil's Plan. It's even better than the first. Have you started? I haven't started it yet. We're currently, our reality show right now is Got to Get Out. And once we finish that, we will probably move on to the Devil's Plan. Okay, I see some other questions. Let me throw out a few things for you real quick, some various topics. So I talked about some new to me games that I played recently. I also played Skull King. I played Jamaica. I played Murder, Deception in Hong Kong. Or is it Deception, Murder in Hong Kong? Can never remember. One of the two. And Camel Up. And I taught Abandon All Artichokes. A few of those were at a game day this past weekend. A few of them were game night. Did also a play test this weekend. The title, I'll go over the words in the title today, and then I'll throw out a question of the day, and then I'll go back to your questions. Rabbits, I mentioned that because I went to a really, really good restaurant in St. Louis that's new to me called No Ordinary Rabbit. We went there on Friday, I believe. No Ordinary Rabbit. It is a Spanish-leaning restaurant. Feels a little bit like a tapas restaurant, Spanish tapas restaurant, but with its own twist, I would say. Really good food. Like it was one of those restaurants where I was there with 3 other people, Megan, another couple, and we each enjoyed all the dishes, but we each had a different favorite dish because everything was so good. The bees in the title come from the apiary update that I posted the other day. If you want to know what that update is, feel free to visit the apiary page of our website, and you can see an archive of all updates. In that update, I talked about that apiary is now available on Board Game Arena in beta. And I showed for the first time the wooden hibernation tokens that we've made and will have available at the same time as Vantage next month. The Ninjas, that's Night of the Ninja. I got to play that for the first time. And the Pirates, just going for fun thematic words today. That was because I played Skull King and saw someone score the most I've ever seen in Skull King, in a game of Skull King. This is a trick-taking game. Megan scored, I think it was around 570 points, and she crushed us in that game. Really, really good game for Megan in Skull King at game night last weekend. I have a few other topics that we'll talk about today, but let me throw out my question of the day for you, which is there a video topic about games, about game design, my favorite games, top 10 games, that type of thing, that you would like me to film, whether it's a topic that I haven't ever covered or that you can't remember me covering, which is totally fine. I don't remember all the topics that I've covered, or if it's a topic that I covered a long time ago, but haven't covered in a long time. So I'm a little out right now of top 10 video topics to cover. And so I'd love your ideas. If you have any ideas or things that you'd like me to cover. Sandy says he saw on Instagram that you played Deep Regrets recently. Played that at Geekway to the West. No, he says, no regrets here. I love it. But what is your opinion on games with so much randomness in general? You know, I don't really, I love randomness in games. I love the variability. I don't mind. In fact, not that I don't mind it. I like luck. I like push your luck. And I think the key for me is that I generally like output. I always mix up output and input randomness, the terms. But the thing that I like is what Deep Regrets does, which is that you roll dice and then you use those dice to determine what you are gaining. Rather than saying, I want to try to do this, and then rolling dice and succeeding or failing based on the dice that you rolled. I don't really enjoy that. But if you roll the dice first, that's a random element, but then you get to make decisions based on that, as many dice drafting games are. I really enjoy that. Deep Regrets also has the randomness of what cards are you going to fish for, and even what cards are you going to buy. It has a lot of randomness in all those different elements. But there's ways, the game is kind of built around a lot of ways to mitigate that. Like you can look at the shadows on the back of the cards to determine how big the fish is. You can look at the depth to see what type of fish it might be. And then a lot of the cards that you can gain help you mitigate that randomness by saying, okay, you can look at a few different cards, or you can put one back, or things like that. Similar to the cards that you're buying, you get to decide how many cards do I want to draw so that I can pick the one that I want. We do something like that in the apiary, where you can invest more, put a higher value B to draw more cards, even though you're only choosing one. So all these things, I love all these elements of randomness and variability in games, especially when the game gives you ways to mitigate it a little bit. And that gives the players an agency to decide, I'm going to lean into this randomness and just go for whatever I get, or I'm going to invest in having less of this randomness. Yeah, just my thoughts on it. But I generally do, me personally, I like randomness and variability in games. Peter says, what are your thoughts on developers re-releasing games? An example of this would be Parks. I own Parks and the expansions, but they have released a newer version. That's a great question, Peter. Yeah, I've talked and thought a lot about like new editions of games, new versions of games. We've done it a little bit at Stonemaier Games with our essential editions, which are essentially just the core game plus the expansion in one package for Between Two Cities, Between Two Castles. We released our own version of Tokaido, which is the same mechanically and thematically as Tokaido, but and artistically, aesthetically as well. But where we updated the rulebook, we updated the accessibility of the game with more text, things like that. And then Libertalia, we completely rebuilt it essentially from the ground up, using the same core mechanism, but addressing what I think were all the concerns about the original Tokaido. Your mileage may vary on that, but we really did. I dug deep into it with Paolo, the designer, to try to bring it up to date to modern board games. So, and those are all different examples. So I don't think there's like a one universal answer to like, this is the type of game that you should really re-release, and this is how you should do it. There's many, many different ways to do it. I mentioned earlier, I was listening to a podcast from Garfield Games, their latest podcast about Assyria, a game that I never heard of before. And apparently Shem decided that he wanted to explore an older game that he was not involved with at all. And so he just kind of went through a list that he had cultivated and continued to cultivate that list of older games that had kind of fallen way off the radar, but but that would be fun for him to work on, which I think is a really neat reason to pursue a game. He just thought it would be fun to try to bring a game up to date and to refresh it. And he found Assyria, and he's done that with the second edition. So I think there are many different motivations and methods for doing that. Garrett says, have you heard of or watched the show or anime called Solo Leveling? I haven't watched it, but I've heard it's great, especially for fans of the lit RPG genre. I haven't heard of that, Garrett. I think the most recent anime show, actually I have two to mention. One is Delicious in Dungeon, which I think a few of you have recommended to me. Megan is currently watching that. I watched a few episodes and enjoyed it. Megan's gotten really into it. And I've heard really good things about the new, it's either a Predator or Alien or both. I think it's Predator. There's an animated Predator movie or show anthology. I think it's a movie on Disney Plus that I've heard is excellent, and that it uses a similar animation style as the League of Legends show, Arcane. So I love that animation style. I might need to check that out. Let's see. Infinite Dude says, I played Unstoppable and lost horribly both times. But wow, I've never played a game feeling like I'm walking on a tightrope like this one. That's a little bit how I felt playing Core of Discovery the other day. Or Corpse? Is that Corpse? No, I think it's Core of Discovery. Felt that the same way. Anursa says, any way to pre-order Vantage from the Canadian store? You will be able to buy Vantage from the Canadian store in July. We don't do pre-orders. It causes a variety of issues. We found it's better for us and for customers if we just wait until the game is ready to ship to you, and then we start accepting orders. So no one has paid for Vantage yet. There's been no pre-order, nothing that has preceded this. It's just when the game is available in stock in early to mid-July, we will let you know if you subscribe to our newsletter or the Vantage newsletter, and you'll be able to buy it from the web store then. I know I think there's sometimes some concern about, will I be able to get a copy? Will you run out of copies? We made a lot of copies of Vantage. We made 50,000 copies of this game. So I feel very confident that we are going to have, and we set aside a lot for the web stores, specifically web stores in Canada, US, Europe, and Australia. We set aside plenty of copies. So we should be fine. And if for whatever reason you aren't able to get a copy directly from us, we have more copies also going to retailers, and there will be a retail release soon after that. Yeah. Either way, though, I appreciate your interest in Vantage. I really do. Ahmed says, I've seen your video on an age contrived regarding the magnetic components and how it is integrated with gameplay. It is becoming one of our new favorites. That's wonderful, and great gameplay for sure. Are you going to use this technique in one of your upcoming games or designs? The magnets. So I would like to use magnets a little bit more in a game someday. And we have one game where we're considering it, if it makes sense for that game. So far, we've only used magnets, I believe, in one game. That's Charterstone, where it's part of a magnetic box. It doesn't do anything for gameplay. It just seals the box when you close it. It has that satisfying feel of sealing the box. But I do really like the feel of a magnetic component snapping into place. I also like it in Merchants of the Dark Road. Uses a dial, and instead of having a plastic pin for the dial, it's a magnet that sticks the dial to the board. It's a really satisfying thing. It's almost magical, really, for that dial to stick there. Okay, Tony says, it does not look like the $3,000 Lord of the Rings game comes with the table in the photos. For that money, you could fly to New Zealand and act out the movies yourself. Honestly, Tony, you probably could. And I actually highly recommend going to New Zealand and going to the different places where Lord of the Rings was filmed, and especially the Shire or Hobbiton. We did that in 2019, and it was well worth anything that we spent on it. I think $3,000 could probably get two people to New Zealand and back. Well, Peter, I said 5 years is my estimate for when we'll have all Wingspan expansions. But really, Elizabeth, she puts her heart and soul into these expansions, and it takes a lot of work and effort and time for her to do so. For us too, and the artists and everyone involved, but especially Elizabeth. So I never want Elizabeth to feel pressured, or especially not shamed. I think sometimes people online shame a creative person for not making the thing fast enough that they want. It's a way of showing your passion for it, to say, oh, I wish I had this thing that I want, the next Wingspan expansion, the next book in a certain series. But I don't think the shame is a good motivator at all. I think there are better ways to show a creative person that you are excited about what they're making. So I never want Elizabeth to feel that way, or any of the designers who work on the various series of our games. I want them to have all the creative time and space to work on those projects and the other projects that get them excited. Because oftentimes I think when a designer takes a break from a certain game and works on some other games for a while, they come back with a lot of fresh ideas to make that other game even better. And I've definitely seen that from Elizabeth over the years. Steve, doesn't have any questions. Just saying, it's nice to see you back to your happy self after last week's hack. It does feel like last week, Steve. I think it was actually 2 weeks ago that the hack happened. But yeah, thanks for saying that. Yeah, you can see a very distraught Jamey around 2 weeks ago on the live cast. Mark says, if you made upgrades for a game, would you rather use acrylic or wooden tokens for upgrades? I really love wooden tokens. I like the feel of them on the table. I have seen acrylic used in some really beautiful ways. There's a particular game that I'm blanking on the name on that uses acrylic tokens. It's a kind of a dungeon crawler game through a train. That was really beautiful. But in general, I like wood and cardboard in my games. I guess for upgraded components, it would be wood. Yeah. Oh, here's Melissa from Tantrum House, the Hadal project. Melissa said it went through a lot of changes from initial design to publication. And Melissa, did I say that correctly, that it was originally a fan design? That, in fact, Melissa, I don't know if you could share that very briefly, but yeah, what was the process for bringing that to life? And if there's maybe a post you can send me, I can talk about it. But yeah, was it a fan design that you sent to the publisher? Did you post it publicly first and they were like, oh, we actually want to publish that? Yeah, how did that process work? Joshua says, any recent or upcoming crowdfunding campaigns you're looking forward to? June seems to have a lot. June does seem to have a lot. Maybe some of them are trying to aim to get in before the winter holidays. We'll see if that actually happens. I think that would require a game to be completely done and ready to go to print at the end of one of these crowdfunding campaigns. I don't think I'm currently backing anything. I'm following things, but I'm not backing anything right now. Brian says, do you find it to be a bummer when your last turn in the game is not meaningful? As a designer, is there anything you can do to help avoid this? It's a good question, Brian. I think this is the most common in games that involve kind of a reset turn, or yeah, I think that I'll use that as a global term. There's different ways that games implement that, but like in a worker placement turn where you have a retrieve turn versus a placement turn. And I think one of the ways that you can do that is that if you do have a turn like that in the game that feels a little bit like a dead turn, to give players another option, like never require them to do that, or make those turns actually feel really good. And that's not just good for the last turn of the game. That's good for the entire game. I think that's one way to go, just to be aware of those turns that players can take that can feel a little bit like a dead turn and make them instead feel awesome, not just at the end of the game, but throughout the game. That's a great question. Frank has a video question. Hey, Frank. He says, I don't think I've seen a top 10 surprising, most unexpected things in games. I do. Frank, it's been a while since I've done one, but I'm going to search my channel for surprises. So I have a video from 5 years ago called My 6 Favorite Hidden Surprises in Tabletop Games. That said, I've played a bunch of legacy games since then that do have a variety of fun surprises. And some of these games that I see on this list are not, in fact, most of them are not legacy games. They are games that have a surprise thing that you can find in the box potentially, or by playing the game. I will think about that one, Frank. I don't know if I have enough examples to share since then that I can think of. But Frank, if you have a few that you can think of, send me an email and send me the ones that you are thinking of right now. An example of this, actually, let's see if I mention it in the video. Something a little bit weird. Interesting. I would see if the Isle of Cats is mentioned in the video. I don't think it is. But some of the types of things that I mentioned in this video are component surprises, like in the Isle of Cats, where when you open the box itself has a kind of a target for cats to sit on if they want to. That to me is a really nice touch for a game to have. I've heard in Galactic Cruise there's a nice little surprise with the first player token, and there's a surprise in Finspan. In Finspan, if you look at the back of the player mats, there's a little surprise there. So those types of things, maybe I do have a list there, Frank, but if anyone has any ideas for that, things that you were surprised by either in the gameplay or in the components of the game as you're unboxing or playing it, let me know about that in the comments. Maybe there's a new top 10 video there. I'll start to make a note about that just in case. Jerry says, are the birds for the fan pack also illustrated by Anna and Natalia or by the fans themselves? Some of them are illustrated by Natalia. They are not fan illustrated, but they're more, they're all in the style of Wingspan, but most of the illustrations are open source. So these would have taken quite some time to make all of these illustrations, easily over a year, and would have delayed other things. So we went for the open source illustration method for these illustrations. Okay, so let's see. Top 10 surprises. I'm going to make a note about that. Surprises. And I mentioned Finspan and Isle of Cats. Pete has one here. Pete says, top 10 games you haven't played in a long time or only played once that you'd like to try again. Pete, I feel like I had a video. I think I had a video this past year about games that I love, my favorite games that I hardly ever play. I think that was the name of the video. But I like I like either of these. Yeah, haven't played in a long time, or played only once. I like that, Pete. A narcissist says, how to design an expansion for a game. I did a video very recently about expansion design regrets. It's going to come out a little bit later this year, but I filmed it recently, and it does touch into a lot of what I probably would talk about in the video about how to design an expansion. I don't think there is really a universal way to design an expansion. So that might be a tough one to do, but I do have several videos about expansions, like different types of expansions, and this video about regrets from Stonemaier Games expansions, things that I would have done a little bit differently. Ian says, favorite games that self-balance mid-game, like in The Gang. That's a good one, Ian. Self-balancing. I think The Gang is a great example for me to think about what you're talking about there. Thank you for that one, Ian. Sean says, made sense to update your best roll and write video from 5 years ago. Has it been 5 years ago since I did roll and write? Let's see if it's really been that long. Wow. Roll and write. I'll search for roll to see if I can see anything a little bit more recent. Oh, there's a lot of videos with that term. Yeah, you're right. My top 10 favorite roll and write games. I assume that I've played a bunch more in the last 5 years. Played a lot of rolling realms at the very least. Yeah, that's a fun one to consider. Roll and write. Yeah, I really don't mind. Like over the last 5 years, I have probably played around 500 new to me games. So there's a lot of games that are eligible for the list that I didn't even know existed or hadn't played at that time. Tony says, how about your top 10 best non-Stonemaier Games rulebooks? I'd be interested in seeing you show a rulebook from a game and what you think it does or does well. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I have a video about this one, Tony. It's okay if I did. No, I don't have one. You know, this was one that I think I thought about for a long time and couldn't figure out a way to really talk about it. Yeah, I do have a very recent video about games where the cards show the rules for the game. This is a tough one, Tony. I'll think about that. I did have it on my list for a while. I just couldn't figure out a way to specify. Like I have a method that I like using in Stonemaier Games for writing our rule books, but there are a lot of other good examples for ways that rules work perfectly fine in other games. I think I struggled to pick like a top 10 list of games that have great rule books. That was tough for me to do. Steve says, how about top 10 board game adaptations based on video games? I don't know if I've played 10 of those to do that one. Or top 10 things board games could learn from video games. That board games could learn from video games. Let's see. I have a video. I have some related videos, but I don't know if I have a specific video for that, Steve. I think I have a video about, I have a top 10 game for digital games that you might enjoy if you love board games. I don't know if I have the kind of the phrase the way you did. Board games, learning from digital. Okay, I like that. Great ideas today. Thank you all for coming up with these ideas. Let me throw a few other things at you real quick, and then I'll spend the rest of the time on your comments. Some shows that we've been enjoying recently are Running Point on Netflix, a half-hour comedy, and the second season of Poker Face. And we're also watching Got to Get Out, a reality competition show. I did a little post on Monday about the current tariff situation, still at 30%. We got a tariff bill for $10,000 just yesterday. Actually, I just paid that, and that's just a drop in the bucket for what's coming for us for all these games that we started making before the tariffs even existed. I do know that some amazing people, including Elizabeth, who I mentioned earlier, went to Washington, D.C. to talk with lawmakers who would listen to them about getting an exception for small businesses from the tariffs, which I think would be a wonderful way for the government to show that they actually do support small businesses through accepting them from the tariffs. Also, this past week, I believe yesterday, was Viticulture's anniversary. Viticulture had its retail release on June 10th in 2013. Way long ago, 12 years ago, Viticulture had its retail release. And we still make Viticulture, which kind of amazes me that we still actively reprint Viticulture and make stuff for Viticulture all the time. So, yeah. Also had our cookbook club this past weekend. I played some soccer this weekend. Cookbook club is where we pick a recipe from a cookbook and everyone makes something from that cookbook. It was a Korean cookbook and we made some really, really good food from it. I played soccer for the first time this past weekend and played some disc golf. Those are all the little highlights. Let's go back to your comments. Infinite Dude says, how would you suggest fan designers organize information for storybooks for fan-made custom content or expansions for Vantage, assuming you're open to people doing this? I honestly don't know if there's anything that I didn't put into Vantage that is left to make. I truly say that in a sincere way. I think one of the most common things I need to get used to people saying as they play Vantage is, oh, did you think to put this in the game? And I don't really know how to answer that, because in every instance where someone has said that to me so far, the answer has been, in my mind, that's actually already in the game. You just have to find a way to find it. So that said, people play a lot of Vantage and they discover all the things. They somehow find something that isn't in the game that they want to be in the game. I don't know. They'll be able to see how the storybooks are formatted. I don't think the game is conducive. Like, the reason I've said that the game is complete and there won't be any expansions is that it really isn't conducive for adding new content to the game. I think you'll see what I'm talking about once you play it. Talk to me in like 3 months about that. If you have played a ton of Vantage and you think, I want to make something else for this world, I think what's more likely and what I'd love to see is if someone ever wanted to use the same action system in Vantage on a new planet that they create, I would love to play that. I'd love to see what they do with that. I think there's design space there, but probably not on the actual Vantage planet. Here we go. Mark says, top 10 non-Stonemaier games you've taken the most lessons from, positives and negatives of design, production mechanisms. That's interesting. I was just thinking today about how much I learned from Terra Mystica, continue to learn from Terra Mystica. Taken the most lessons from. I like that. I like that a lot, Mark. Joshua says, what about covering more about the direction of the industry, but in a positive way? Top 10 list of themes that are underutilized, positive choices from game publishers, great industry standards. Joshua, there's something there. I'm trying to think what excites me the most about that. Positive choices from game publishers, great industry standards. I'll think about that one, Joshua. I think that the last two on that list are the one that's sparking the most for me. Positive choices by in recent games. I'll say that, if we're talking about kind of trends in recent Games. Great ideas. Thank you all for saying this. Curve Cut says top 10 favorite board game influencers. I like where you're going there. I think my inclination for this is to generally point people to. In fact, I couldn't do a top 10. But there's so many that I learn from all the time, and that I really appreciate, both as a designer, gamer, and publisher. But I would say the best place to find the ones that I particularly connect with, is on our charity auctions. As we've done, I think, 10 or 11 charity auctions over the years, usually featuring around 10 different content creators, and we never repeat them. So there's at least around 100 content creators on that list that I really, really love. I know that's way more than 10, but it would be impossible for me to narrow it down to 10. Carol says, have I looked at the new Excalibur Kickstarter? I usually don't back social deduction games, but the theme, art, designer, and metal swords got me. I did see it. I am intrigued by it. It's one of the games that I'm kind of following. I'm intrigued by it. I don't know if I want to spend $40 on a social deduction game. I must admit that is a little bit of a hang up for me. However, if it's a game that I end up really, really loving, then I'm sure I'll get $40 worth of play out of it. So that's where I'm hemming and hawing a little bit on it right now, Carol. Ian says, maybe I should do the party game video. Ian, I could. I was looking at those other videos that covered that space, but I'll write it down. You never know. It doesn't hurt for me to write down and see if it comes up. That would be a very easy list for me to make, because I have most of those games on my shelf right now. Amit says, I followed multiple videos about the mechanisms you like, but what about a series of videos about mechanisms you didn't like and how you would improve it so you can like it? It would be small bites of design lessons. It's a totally fair question here. I do try to keep things positive. So I think the one way that I've approached this in the past is to talk about my gaming exceptions. If you search for the word exception or exceptions, you'll see that. It's a much older video. So it's examples of things in games that I generally don't like. And then I feature a game where I actually do like the way that they implemented that mechanism or that theme. That video was very well received. I think a lot of people were interested in it. Let's see if I can find it. Exceptions. Yeah, here we go. 13 glorious gaming exceptions to my personal preferences. And that was from 6 years ago. So that's been a while. I think that would be a good one to try to refresh. And I think I probably could do that. Corey from Blue Falcon says, as someone who isn't big into video games, what are your thoughts as someone who makes products for customers on the Nintendo Switch 2, particularly the user agreement that allows them to brick the system due to mods and no more game cartridges? Cartridges are now just a download key. Corey, that's a great question. I certainly don't know much about the video gaming world, especially not the console world. If I play video games, it's going to be on my computer on Steam. Allows them to brick the system due to mods and no more game cartridges. No more game cartridges, I don't mind, as long as the system can hold a bunch of games with its memory system. But I generally want like less tangible things and more things consolidated into other things, like my Kindle. I really do like having all my books on a single device on my Kindle. As for them bricking the system due to mods, that sounds to me like the type of thing that a company would put in just in case, but something that they don't intend to actually do. So, but I don't know the details on that. That does sound controversial for sure. And, but I'm curious to see if that ever actually happens. Okay, I've heard one person said that the table wasn't part of the Lord of the Rings game, but I've heard two people say that it looks like the table is part of it. That does change the math a little bit. It looks like a really beautiful table, especially if you can use that table for other games too. Maybe it gets closer to that $3,000 price point. Rick says, I don't know if you've ever done a video about word-based games like Letter Tycoon. I haven't played Letter Tycoon, but I did play very recently a game called, what was the game called? Not Fiction. I played it with Pete. Pete, if you're still watching, can you chime in with the name of that word game that we played recently that I had a lot of fun with? It was the Push Your Luck game involving letters and words. This is a good one for like gaming exceptions, actually, because I don't play a lot of Typeset. Here we go. The game is called Typeset, and I had a lot of fun with it. Give me a lot of flexibility. So I'll actually put that as the first game on my exceptions list of word style games that I really enjoyed. Let's see. Grayson says, what about doing something along the lines of top 10 minimalist games? Interesting. Minimalist games, Grayson. I don't think I have done a game about that. Minimalist games. I'll think about that one. Played the game Fives recently, and the aesthetic of Fives is very minimalistic. I don't think there's any art at all in it. It's just a graphic design of numbers at different sizes and different colors. Yeah. Jeff says, look back at the top 10 list and say, my top 10 favorite videos that you've made or videos that you're most proud of. That's an interesting one, Jeff. I must admit, I probably would have a tough time narrowing it down to 10. Every now and then I've gone back through some of the videos and gone back and looked at them. And I've been like, oh, wow, this is a really cool topic to cover. I like the conversation that emerged from it. I like the games that emerged from it. I like the idea. It might be tough for me to narrow it down to 10, though. Chris emailed me 14 ideas. Chris, I think... Oh, really? I did. I would imagine I had some. So Chris emailed me a list of 14 different ideas. Chris, I will look up that email. I am guessing at least one video came out of that list because I thought it was a really good list. So George says, we just started a 5-player Rise of Fenris campaign. That's awesome, George. Have you ever played Albion in the campaign? It's been a while since I played the Rise of Fenris, so I don't remember, but probably. I definitely, the last time I played Scythe, I played it as Albion, but not in the Rise of Fenris. So I don't remember, George. It's been a while. Anthony says, your thoughts on the board game market being saturated by so many games at times, it's hard to choose. There's a little bit of everything. That's a good point, Anthony. I talked about that a little bit on the blog. I don't know if I have a full video to talk about that, but it's a good topic for me to bring up from time to time. I'm glad you mentioned it. Let's see. Wadi Rant says, I see there are coins for Vantage, but I recall you mentioned there are other upgradable components as well. Could you remind me what those are? Yeah, there are 3 accessories for Vantage. 1 are the metal coins. 2 are the dual-layered player mats. There are no player mats in the game. You don't need them. You're making a 3x3 card grid, but the player mats make it nice to slot cards into place and to prevent cards from shifting around or sliding around. And 3 are wooden versions of the skill tokens, which are used frequently in the game. They're cardboard in the game. They're wooden versions in the upgrade pack. Those are 3 independent accessories. They are all completely optional, and they will all be on our web store upon launch. Wait, I realize I'm 20 minutes behind on comments, so sorry I am so far behind here. I'll try to focus on questions. Nick says, at what point do you think that high variability and or randomness mechanisms negatively affect player experiences? I think it depends really on the game, Nick. I'm trying to think of a game where it had so much randomness or variability. So I would say for me, the variability plays in more than randomness. If a game requires me to set up so many different little bits and pieces for variability, that becomes annoying to me at that point. I like when setup is taken into consideration for variability. So I don't mind some things being static and other things not being static. Nick says, also, how do you create significant differences when designing hundreds of cards? That is a tough puzzle, Nick. I am still trying to figure that out myself. Designing tons of unique cards is really one of the more difficult things for me to do. I found one of the things that helps me is if I am working with an artist or world builder, or both, as is the case with like Jakub Brzezalski, who can share art with me that can inspire different types of cards. I work a lot better creating unique mechanisms when I have a theme or an illustration to work from. That is really helpful for me. Let's see. Just looking for questions here. Ahmed, I think there's a question here. Do you have more ideas to make the membership more valuable? Like, for example, only live sessions for champions and content made for them. I definitely don't. We don't do exclusives to Stonemaier Games. So I don't want to do exclusive content for some people and not others. As for champions, so the way I think about it, a champion membership is it's like $15 or $20 a year. How much is a champion membership? I think it's 15. Maybe it's 20. It's $15 for a 20% discount, which by itself for many of our products, that pays for itself. But also, the origin of the champion membership was to support the content that we create. I create around 6 videos a week now, 5 to 6 videos a week about a wide variety of topics. And I write and post 2 articles a week. So I think, and I make that available for everybody. It's not exclusive. It's for anyone to gain, to use. And yeah, you could not pay for the champion membership and still get that content. Totally fair. But you could also say, I support you spending your time making this content through a champion membership. I think, I don't know, $15, $20 for an entire year's worth of content, 5 videos a week, 2 articles a week. I hope that the value that you gain from that content, including these live casts, is worth $15 a year. That's my hope. And if not, I need to do better myself and make that content better and more valuable to you. Ivan says, oh, another question about the special edition of Agricola. Do you think it's worth $169 for component upgrades, especially when the game is around for 12 years with many other versions? Ivan, I think that's up to you. I think that's a similar question earlier about the Lord of the Rings game. If someone is willing to pay that, then it is will hopefully be worth it for them. For me, probably not. I don't see a need to spend nearly $200 on a copy of Agricola. But I completely respect someone who gets that much, who enjoys spending that, who enjoys having that in their collection. I don't think it's just component upgrades. I think it is, everything all in one place. It looks great. And it's a fantastic game. So I think for some people, it's definitely worth it. Garrett says a top 10 surprises would be a great Vantage spoiler video next year, sort of retrospective. It will be fun, Garrett. I like that, to go back after Vantage has been available for a while. And of course, anyone could just choose not to watch the video and talk about some of my favorite surprises, my favorite things that I hope people find or will find in Vantage. That's one for the future, but I really like the idea of doing that. Chad says, how about a top 10 mechanism combos? I find that low weight games generally have 1 mechanism, medium games have 2, heavy games have 3 or more. Have I noticed that? I don't know if I noticed that specific pattern, but that I could definitely see that being a pattern within games. Mechanism. I do have some videos about combos. Let's see when the last one was. I don't know if that's about mechanical combos. Oh, I love looking at my older videos and seeing Biddy in the background. My sweet Biddy boy. Oh, that's nice. I'm looking at the video for Roll and Write. If you look at that video from 6 years ago, Biddy's in that one. I think the video about combos is about, actually, no, I don't have a video that's just about combos, it looks like. But yeah, mechanism combos, like when you combine deck building with worker placement, like in Dune Imperium. I do like that kind of thing. Yeah. Sorry, just scrolling through. I know I'm behind. Okay, here's Melissa telling the story of the Hadal project, what ended up being a standalone scenario for Time Stories Revolutions. Melissa says, the publisher had a kit for designing scenarios and encouraged people to send in their designs. We designed the scenario for the original white system, the white box that had expansions, and sent it to some friends and other reviewers to playtest. We also posted it on BGG as a fan scenario. After a lot of changes, we sent a copy to Space Cowboys. About 2 years later, they contacted us and said they'd like to publish it, so we took down the original files from BGG. It was a very interesting experience. Really cool, Melissa. It sounds like that took a lot of work, a lot of creativity, and I love what you and Kevin created for that. It's one of the reasons I told Kevin this, that I sent Kevin and Melissa an advanced copy of Vantage, because it was kind of inspiring for me to see what they did with that module. It didn't impact all of Vantage, but it did impact a few specific things in Vantage. Donna says, surprise things in the box can be bad. I have heard about this, about Grim Fables. Is that the name of the game? It has Grim in the name, for sure. Grim Forest, I think. There was something in that box that was thrown away or never found for a lot of people. That can happen when you hide something under the insert. Sometimes people never know it's there, or I never quite understood how it got thrown away. I guess maybe if it's taped to the insert, maybe that was the case. But I thought it was just a loose card in the bottom of the box for Grim Forest, as I recall. Greg says, how about a video that updates the brief history of Stonemaier Games blog posts? I've done 2 of those videos, Greg. Let's see when the most recent one was. Brief history Part 2 was 2020 through 2022. So it might be, that covered around 3 years of time. It could be a good time for another brief histories video. Brief histories. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that one. I think I'm happy to revisit that one. Corey says, a video of some of your favorite memories or experiences while playing games. Do I have a favorite? That's one that I'm happy to revisit from time to time, because I thought I have a video kind of about this. But it's been a while, at least, Corey. I can't find it off the top of my head. So yeah, gaming memories, gaming experiences. I'd love to revisit that from time to time. David says, would you consider the following types of content for your channel: Board Game Jam and amateur board game reviews? Tell me more about that. Those are those channels, David? I don't think off the top of my head I'm familiar with Board Game Jam and amateur board game reviews. My channel does not do reviews, so that wouldn't apply. But maybe Board Game Jam. Tell me what that is about. Chris says, do you have any idea when you'll offer neoprene mats for Wingspan? Sometime in 2026. I don't know the exact time, but we have a couple things in place that needed to happen first, and then we can offer them. Wendy says, have you ever done a top 10 video for games with immersive themes, where the theme really feels like it's the DNA of the game, as opposed to a theme that really feels like mainly there for the aesthetic? I've done a few videos about themes on games, and Wendy, and just the other day, I filmed a video, just yesterday actually, filmed a video about games where I tend to make decisions based on theme over strategy. So touches on that topic a little bit. Yeah, but that's also, I love exploring the idea of the thematic impact on games, and when games are really clearly designed from the theme up. Just the Movie says, did you get the chance to compare scoring number visibility on the Stonemaier Games Tokaido and the original Tokaido boards? I did, actually. Yeah, I remember to do that after I got off the video, and they are exactly the same. The difference is the format of the score track. I like ours better than the original. The original went like this, and ours goes all the way around the board. But the weight of the text is exactly the same. Weight and size of the numerical text is the same. Scott says, top 10 games you wish lasted longer. That's interesting. Usually I wish games lasted a little bit shorter. Top 10 games I wish lasted longer. It's a great question. I don't know if I have a list of games that I wish I could last longer, but I'll write it down, Scott, just in case I think of, I can think of that. Favorite games that simulate a real world activity or job. That's a fun one. Top 10 combat games. Found combat being much less mean in recent years. I have a few videos about combat, but it's been a while since I've posted them, so I'm happy to revisit combat. I know that's a topic thought about a lot in games. Top 10 MeepleSource games or game tokens in general. Oh, talk about the tokens in games. That's interesting, Jordan. Aaron mentions top 10 historical games like Watergate. I could probably come up with a list of games. Watergate, the recent Molly House, games that are based on historical themes. Historical. All right, I'm a little over time here, so I might cut off a little bit short without seeing all the comments. Yeah, I'm going to have to. Here, Samwise asked about the development of Inkborn. Other than the intense difficulty, I've really enjoyed it so far. You can see the Jamey touch on the card info. Thank you. Yeah, I really tried to push the designers to focus on the unique theme of Inkborn, which is a digital roguelike game that I am personally involved with, not Stonemaier Games, but Jamey, I'm involved with this game. It's going pretty well. I'm kind of waiting for them to update the beta, and then I'm going to jump into it and get back into it for a little bit. Okay, I need to cut off in a second. I'm just scrolling down real quick to see if there's here's a question about I think you've done a recent video about games where mechanisms are closely intuitively tied to the theme. I think so. I think that is right. All right, I'm going to miss some of the comments here today, but if there's one that I missed, if there's a question that I missed that you really want me to answer, feel free to ask me in the comments. I've seen a few people mention, oddly, tariffs at 55%, but the tariffs are currently at 30%. So I don't know where the 55% is coming from. Yeah, I'll look into that. I just looked at CNN real quick to see if there's an announcement. I didn't see anything there. But tariffs on board games are currently, at least through mid-August, are at 30%. It will be really bad if it goes. I mean, 30% is way worse than zero. I want no tariffs at all. But 55% is back to what I originally called the darkest timeline, because that is really high. That's really bad. Hope that doesn't happen. Okay, I gotta go. Greg says the 55% was news this morning regarding trade talks. Okay, I'll try to find more information on that. I appreciate you letting me know about that. Kevin says you have to add back the fentanyl. That's included in the 30%. Yeah, I'll look into that. Thank you for mentioning that. I will dig deeper into it. But yeah, thank you all for joining me for this topic today, for giving me many good video topics. I have a whole list here of video topics to explore. I really appreciate that. And I will see you next Wednesday. Take care.